My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 33 years old. And the day I helped my dad scan some paperwork was the day my world cracked. The printer whirred, spitting out a will there will, and my name wasn't on it. Not one word. Just Ryan's. The house, the savings, everything I'd been paying to keep afloat, all his. My hands shook, the ink still warm on the page, my reflection trembling in the monitor's blue light. But what they didn't know was, I had already stopped being their obedient son. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by your own family. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story about money, it's about love twisted into control, and how far someone will go when they finally decide to stop being used. I grew up in a house where silence said more than words. The kind of silence that hummed under the TV static, beneath the clink of dinner plates, inside the pauses between my parents' sighs. Our dining table was old oak, carved before I was born, but one leg always wobbled like our balance as a family. Mom sat at the head, ladling mashed potatoes onto Ryan's plate until it overflowed. "Eat, honey, you need to grow." She'd smile at him, then glance at me, her voice cooling. "Ethan, you've had enough, right?" I nodded, pretending I wasn't hungry. The truth was, I always was hungry for attention, for fairness, for anything that felt like love. Ryan was 5 years younger, golden hair, easy grin, that kind of charm that bends rules. He was the miracle baby, Mom's phrase, after years of trying. I was the test run, the mistake that survived. Even when I was 10, I understood my role. Fix things, be quiet, stay useful. One summer afternoon, I was building a model car at the kitchen counter. Ryan wanted to play, grabbed it, dropped it, cracked the chassis clean in half. When Dad came in, Ryan started crying before I could speak. Ethan yelled at me. Dad frowned, then turned on me. "You need to set an example. He looks up to you." I stood there, glue on my fingers, shame burning like acid in my chest. I didn't know it back then, but that moment would matter later when lies became a family tradition. At school, I was the quiet kid teachers liked but forgot after roll call. I'd get certificates, honor ribbons, all those little paper trophies that meant nothing at home. Mom pinned Ryan's drawings to the fridge, instead crayon blobs of superheroes and dinosaurs. When I got my first ribbon for a science fair, she said, "That's nice," and went back to stirring soup. I remember the smell of celery and salt, the way the steam blurred her face. I swallowed it, but it carved deeper than I thought. By 16, I was mowing lawns, saving every dollar. Ryan would borrow my money for projects that somehow always turned into video games or sneakers. When I asked for it back, Mom said, "He's just a kid, Ethan." She'd hand me $5 and call it even. Dad would just grunt from the couch, watching football, beer sweating in his hand. Thanksgiving that year was the last one where we all pretended to be happy. I bought Mom a new winter coat with my savings. She smiled politely, said, "You shouldn't spend on me." Ryan gave her a cheap candle he clearly regifted, and she teared up. "He's so thoughtful," she said. I laughed under my breath, but it came out bitter. The turkey tasted like paper. When I turned 18, I left for college in Seattle. The night before, Dad clapped my shoulder. "You'll do fine. Just don't forget who needs you back home." I didn't know he meant it literally. I thought it was love. Those years in Seattle were gray but freeing. I studied IT, lived off instant noodles, worked nights at a diner that smelled of fryer oil and tired dreams. The neon sign buzzed above me as I scrubbed tables, thinking maybe this was what independence felt like, exhaustion mixed with hope. Every payday, I wired a little money home. Mom always texted thank you with a heart emoji. Later, I'd learned that money never went where I thought. When Ryan dropped out of community college, Mom said it was because he wasn't challenged enough. Dad called it a rough patch. I called it predictable. Still, I kept sending money, fixing the house from afar, paying for the new roof, the leaking pipes. "It's just temporary," Mom said over the phone. "You're doing God's work." The praise felt hollow, but I took it. Maybe I still believed that one day they'd see me. I didn't know it then, but every check I sent was buying my own erasure. By the time I turned 26, I had a decent job in Seattle and an apartment with a view of the gray skyline. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I had a girlfriend, too, Clara. She was the kind of person who could walk into a room and make everyone exhale. Soft laugh, steady eyes, She used to say, "You talk about your family like you owe them rent for existing." I'd laugh it off, but she was right. Every phone call with my parents came with a price tag. When Dad had his mild stroke, the guilt came instantly, the kind that doesn't ask permission. I packed my things, took unpaid leave, and drove back to Oregon in the rain. The house looked smaller than I remembered, the siding peeling, the mailbox leaning like it was tired too. Mom stood at the door in her robe, crying, calling me her rock. Ryan wasn't there. He was out of town, which I later learned meant Vegas. That first night back, I slept on the couch. The smell of disinfectant and old carpet filled my nose. The kitchen faucet dripped, tick, 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 like a metronome counting down my patience. For months, I balanced my job remotely and handled everything: bills, appointments, groceries, the mortgage payments. Mom called it just helping out until your father's back on his feet. But even when Dad was walking again, they still needed me. Somehow, they always did. Ryan drifted in and out like a ghost, always broke, always full of promises. He'd show up with flashy sneakers, smelling like cheap cologne and bad decisions. Mom would make him a plate of leftovers, whispering, "He's trying, Ethan." I'd watch him from across the table, spoon in hand, wondering when anyone would ever say the same about me. Then came the Christmas that changed everything. Clara drove down to meet my parents for the first time. She brought homemade cookies, nervous smile, trying too hard. The house was loud with fake cheer carols playing. Ryan bragging about his new startup idea, Mom beaming. When Clara mentioned our plans to move back to Seattle together, Mom froze mid-laugh. "Move back? But Ethan's needed here." Clara glanced at me. "He's been needed here his whole life." The room went silent except for the ticking wall clock. Ryan smirked, sipping his beer. "Guess some people can't handle responsibility." Clara's jaw tightened. "Responsibility? You mean the bills he pays for you?" Mom's voice sharpened. "Watch your tone, young lady." Clara stood up, tears glassing her eyes. "You don't want a son, you want a servant." She left that night. I didn't chase her. Maybe part of me knew she was right. After she was gone, I buried myself in routine. Fixed the leaky roof, repainted the porch, paid off Dad's medical bills. Every nail, every receipt was proof that I still mattered, even if no one said it. Then, one afternoon, while sorting through the mail, I saw a thick envelope addressed to Linda Cole. The return address: Reed Street, Mary's Estate Legal Division. My Uncle Henry had died months earlier. Inside was a letter, a notice about an inheritance he'd left for the family. I didn't think much of it until I heard Mom on the phone that night. Her voice was low, sharp. "No, don't tell Ethan. He's fine on his own. Ryan needs this." That sentence hit me harder than any slap could have. Later, neighbor Nora mentioned it casually, how generous my late uncle had been, how that money must have helped cover Ryan's little mess. She smiled kindly, not realizing the ground had just shifted under me. I remember walking back home under the oak tree, leaves crunching under my boots, the air cold enough to bite. The windows glowed warm, but the warmth wasn't for me. I looked up at the house, the one I'd been paying for, fixing, saving. For the first time, I saw it for what it was: a monument to everyone else's comfort built on my quiet obedience. And somewhere inside me, a switch flipped. I didn't know it then, but the next time I stepped through that door, I wouldn't be the same man walking out. It started small, like cracks in old paint. One morning, Mom texted, "Can you send $300 for groceries? Your dad's check hasn't cleared." I sent it without question. A week later, another message: "Ryan's car broke down. He needs help getting to interviews." Interviews. Sure. I wired $500. No thank you. No update. Just silence. Then the calls began: short, sharp, transactional. "We're a little short on the mortgage this month. Your dad's medication isn't covered anymore. Ryan's just finding his footing." Each time, I told myself this was family, that helping them meant I mattered, that one day, they'd see the difference between love and obligation. But guilt has a funny way of keeping you on a leash. One afternoon, while balancing my remote work at the kitchen table, Ryan waltzed in like a visiting celebrity. Sunglasses indoors, shirt half unbuttoned, a new watch flashing in the light. "Yo, big bro." He grinned, dropping his keys on the counter. "Appreciate you covering that rent last month." "It wasn't rent," I said. "It was the mortgage. For their house." He shrugged, cracking open a soda. "Same thing." I clenched my jaw. "When are you planning to get a job, Ryan?" He laughed. Relax, man. Not everyone wants to live in spreadsheets and caffeine. Mom overheard and swooped in like his attorney. Ethan, don't start. He's trying his best. I stared at her. You said the same thing 5 years ago. Her eyes hardened. And you'll keep saying that until you stop judging him. The argument fizzled, but something inside me snapped another thread. A week later, I noticed something strange while checking the joint bank account I'd used to pay bills. My access was denied. Incorrect credentials. I called the bank. The teller's voice was cautious, polite. I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. It appears your name was removed as an authorized user at the account holder's request. I hung up slowly. Account holder's request. That meant mom or dad. When I confronted them, dad just sighed. We needed to simplify things. By removing me? You're busy. It's easier this way. Ryan's handling it. I laughed an empty, bitter sound. Ryan can't handle a hangover. Dad's eyes narrowed. You've always looked down on him. Maybe that's the problem. I didn't answer. I just walked out to the porch, the boards creaking under my feet. The sun was setting behind the oak tree, bleeding orange into the sky. It should have been peaceful. It wasn't. That night, neighbor Nora called me over. She'd baked apple pie. Said she had something you should know. I sat at her kitchen table, the smell of cinnamon thick in the air. She leaned closer. Your Uncle Henry, he left quite a bit behind. He told me once he wanted you to have something special for all the care you gave your parents. I frowned. What do you mean? She hesitated. Linda said the inheritance helped them catch up on debts and, well, Ryan's situation. I felt my stomach turn. What situation? Her eyes softened. Sweetheart, I think you already know. I walked home under that same tree again, pie tin in hand, hands trembling. The cold air bit my lungs. The gravel crunched under my shoes. And all I could think was they sold my kindness to buy his mistakes. At the kitchen table, I stared at my phone, scrolling through years of transfers and receipts. Rent, hospital bills, repairs, thousands. Every number was a memory, every dollar a piece of myself. I told myself I'd stop helping, but I didn't. Not yet. Because part of me still wanted them to ask me for help, not my wallet. I didn't know it, but the next favor they asked would finally break that illusion. The breaking point came one rainy Thursday. I was working late, rain hammering the roof, when my phone buzzed with a notification. Payment request $3,800. The sender? Linda Cole. No message, just the number. Mortgage amount to the cent. I stared at it, half laughing. A transfer request, not even a call, not a please. Just a bill. I declined it instantly. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom? I didn't answer. Another ring. Then another. I finally picked up. Ethan, she started, her voice trembling. Why did you decline it? Because it's not my responsibility, I said, steady but cold. Her tone sharpened. We're going to lose the house. Maybe you should have thought about that before putting my name off everything. I snapped. Silence. I could hear Dad in the background, muttering. Then the line clicked off. The next morning, there was a knock at my apartment door. I knew before opening it. Mom's voice muffled through the wood. Ethan, we're not leaving until you talk to us. When I opened it, the hallway filled with their presence. Mom in her heavy coat, eyes swollen from crying. Dad stiff, jaw clenched. Ryan behind them, hands in pockets, smirk plastered on. Mom started the script. Ethan, please. We didn't mean. I cut her off. You didn't mean to betray me, or you didn't mean to get caught. Dad stepped forward. Watch your tone. Watch my tone? I laughed, shaking my head. You cut me out of your lives on paper, but I'm supposed to pay your bills like nothing happened. Ryan chimed in, voice lazy. Man, it's not that deep. Just help them out. It's not a big deal. My chest burned. Not a big deal? You don't have a job, Ryan. You've never paid a single bill in your life. He scoffed. Maybe that's why they trust me more. I don't hold it over them. The words hit harder than they should have. Mom gasped, whispering, Ryan, but he didn't stop. I took a step closer. You want the house, the money, the inheritance? Fine. Start acting like it's yours. Pay the mortgage, fix the pipes, take care of them. Because I'm done. Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't. Dad's voice cracked, full of indignation. You're being selfish. I laughed a cold, bitter sound. Selfish? I've been paying for everything since I was 20. You used my money to bail Ryan out of poker debt. You used my life to clean up his mess. Ryan shifted, suddenly quiet. Mom's eyes filled with tears. He's fragile, Ethan. You don't understand. Oh, I understand. My voice dropped to a whisper. You're afraid he'll fall apart without your protection. You never thought maybe I've been falling apart all along. The silence after that was heavy, so thick you could hear the rain against the window. They left without another word. But the messages didn't stop. Posts started popping up online, vague guilt trips disguised as family love. Mom wrote, "We did everything for our kids, but some people forget where they came from." Dad shared it with a caption, "So-called family should never turn their back." Ryan's post was the worst. "True family helps each other. Some people only care about money." He tagged me. I sat there, staring at the screen, pulse drumming in my ears. For years, I'd been their silent provider, their shield. Now I was the villain. So I did what I'd never done before. I told the truth. I opened Facebook, fingers shaking but steady enough to type. For years, I've been paying my parents' bills, fixing their home, bailing my brother out. Today, I found out I was never part of the plan. Their will leaves me nothing. I'm done being the backup plan. I hit post. The notifications exploded within minutes. Relatives, old friends, coworkers commenting in disbelief. Some offered sympathy. Others whispered that I shouldn't have gone public. But for the first time, I didn't care. For the first time, the weight wasn't mine to carry. As I closed the laptop, the reflection of the screen flickered across my face, and I realized something simple, terrifying, and freeing all at once. They hadn't cut me out of their lives. I had finally cut myself free. The meeting was set for Tuesday morning at Jason's law office, a gray building that smelled like paper, dust, and old secrets. Rain streaked the glass windows, blurring the parking lot into silver streaks. I almost didn't go. But part of me needed to see their faces. When the truth finally surfaced, when I walked in, they were already there. Mom sat stiffly on one side of the polished table, a box of tissues within reach. Dad leaned back in his chair, pretending to be composed, but his knee kept bouncing. And Ryan's sunglasses perched on his head like he owned the place, scrolled on his phone, smirking when he saw me. Jason, the family lawyer, looked up from his papers. "Ethan," he said smoothly, "thanks for coming. Let's keep this civil, shall we?" "Civil?" I pulled out my chair, the legs screeching against the floor. "You mean like secretly removing me from the will and forging my signature on amendments?" The smirk vanished from Ryan's face. Mom's hand froze mid-reach for a tissue. Jason's tone faltered. "I am not sure what you're referring to." I reached into my bag and set my phone on the table. One tap and the recording began to play. Ryan's voice crackled through the speaker. "Bro, can you just make it look like Ethan signed it? He won't care. He never fights back." Then Jason's reply. "It's risky, but if your parents approve, I can make it work." The sound of rain filled the silence that followed. Mom covered her mouth, eyes wide. "Ryan, what?" But I wasn't done. I slid a folder across the table: bank statements, transfers, every dollar sent to cover debts that turned out to be poker losses. "You used my money, my name, my trust. For years." Ryan's voice cracked. "You're twisting this. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I cut in, cold and calm. "I paid for your safety net, and you paid me back by erasing me." Dad slammed his palm against the table. "Enough. We did what we had to do. You wouldn't understand the pressure we were under." "The pressure?" I snapped. "Or the fear that your golden boy might finally face a consequence." He glared at me, but it wasn't anger anymore. It was something worse: shame. Jason tried to collect his papers, stammering something about confidentiality, but I leaned in. "Don't bother. The state bar is going to hear that recording next." Ryan stood up, voice shaking now. "You can't do this." "I already did." The thunder outside cracked like punctuation. Then Mom's voice, soft but deadly honest. "We knew." Everything stopped. Her words hung in the air, trembling. "What?" I whispered. She looked at me, eyes red. "We knew about the forged signature," Jason told us. "But Ryan, he said he couldn't handle losing everything. He said he'd—" Her voice broke. "He'd hurt himself if we didn't let him keep it." I stared at her, every nerve burning cold. "So you traded honesty for fear?" Dad lowered his head. "We thought we were protecting him." I exhaled slowly. "You weren't protecting him. You were feeding the disease. Ryan sank back in his chair, pale. No jokes left. The clock ticked once, twice. I stood, collected my folder, and looked at each of them. I'm not here to fix you anymore, I said quietly. You built this mess. Now you live in it. And then I walked out, the sound of my footsteps echoing down the sterile hallway. Outside, the rain hit harder, soaking through my jacket. I didn't care. For the first time, I wasn't running from the storm. I was walking straight through it. I didn't look back as I walked out of Jason's office. The rain had turned into a steady curtain, thin but endless, soaking my shoes, blurring the world into silver streaks. For once, the cold didn't sting, it felt like cleansing. I reached my car, dropped the folder on the passenger seat, and just sat there, breathing. The phone buzzed. A new email. Subject: formal complaint received. The Bar Association's auto-reply confirming Jason's misconduct report. I stared at it, a bitter smile tugging at my mouth. One domino had already fallen. On the dashboard beside the folder lay the small brass key my uncle had left behind, wrapped in his handwriting. For the one who shows up. I hadn't opened the old lockbox it belonged to. Not yet. Maybe it held money. Maybe it held another secret. Either way, it was mine, and unlike everything else, no one could take it. That night, I drove past my parents' house one last time. The porch light flickered weakly, half burned out, like the house itself was tired of lying. Through the window, I saw Ryan pacing, phone in hand, shouting at someone. Maybe Jason, maybe a loan officer, maybe the void finally answering back. I parked across the street for a moment, engine running. The oak tree swayed in the wind, shedding its last few leaves onto the driveway. I thought about all the years I'd spent under its branches, waiting for approval that never came. I whispered, "It's your turn to clean up the mess now." Then I drove away. The phone buzzed again, this time, a text from Clara. "Ethan, I heard what happened. You did the right thing. You deserve peace." For the first time in years, I believed it. They thought they had buried me under guilt and obligation. But what they'd really done was hand me the key to my own freedom. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit subscribe, because stories like mine don't end here. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's the only way to survive. Tell me where you're watching from, and share your story in the comments. I read every single one. Maybe you've been the peacekeeper, the provider, the forgotten one. You're not alone. This was my reckoning, my freedom, my revenge. And if you've ever carried the same quiet hurt I did, stay tuned, because the next chapter might just belong to you.